Aloha and welcome to Lucy's Paradise Podcast. Before you do anything, please like and subscribe. Today we have an interesting episode with Justin because we're going over the real story about what happened with Daylenn Pua, who is an 18-year-old that went missing in 2015 off the Haiku Stairs.
Well, technically the Mauna Valley. He never even made it to the stairs, but we'll
True.
get there.
Facts.
Yeah, he's often associated with the stairs,
Right.
but that's because
That
that's
was
where
his
he was
mission.
trying to get there, yeah.
Right. So let's talk about that. What's the timeline on that? Because basically there are stories that already exist out there about this. The only thing is there's a lot of really silly theories, and we have tried our best to kind of narrow down what the actual facts are of the story. So that's what we're trying to go off of.
This is one of those stories where, like, the internet gets a hold of it, becomes obsessed with it because they fixate on one image or one thing. And oftentimes most of the people who are creating or crafting these theories or thoughts have never experienced where that person was. You know?
And living on island, we both have done this hike. Justin's done this hike multiple times. I've done it once with him specifically. Yeah. It is an 8-hour hike total if you're doing
If you're hoofing it.
If you're hoofing it.
If you're hoofing it, it's 8 hours out and back. The last time I did it, it took about 12, but we took someone who was a little older, so we took our time. But yeah, it's like something like 9.5 miles out and back and like 2,800 feet elevation gain, something like that. It's a lot. Yeah. It's extremely difficult. It's a very, very hard hike. The kind of hike where you need to like pack a lunch, bring extra water, first aid kit if you have it.
It's a journey.
It is quite a journey because it takes a very long time to do it.
Yeah, I was talking to my friend a little bit about this just generally, and I said, don't ever hike alone, first of all, but mainly you're technically supposed to be prepared and bring 2 weeks worth of food because you're supposed to actually pack as if you are going to go missing.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't do that, clearly.
A lot of folks don't because the likelihood of it happening is pretty low, but not impossible, I mean, how many news stories just in the last 2 years have we heard about hikers going missing, even on some of the smaller mountains on island,
Right.
Like, there's a sign now at the trailhead of Three Peaks that has a list of everyone who's passed in the last, 15 years or so, which peak they perished on and when that happened,
right?
So, I mean, the last time we did it was a couple of years ago, and the most recent person who had passed was like the month prior to when we were starting that hike.
Yeah.
Like, it's dangerous, People
it's dangerous.
are inexperienced. They assume more than they think they know, and it can be a problem. So, like, half of this, I guess, podcast is a little bit about hiking safety in general. You know?
And it should be with this story. But yeah, if you want to get into the story.
Yeah. So diving in, I'm going to have a reference here. I'm going to continue to circle back to.
No, you're fine.
Because I have like a timeline written out. Okay, so the story kind of begins around, I would say, Wednesday, February 25th, 2015. Because Daylenn makes a Facebook post that he's going to attempt to get to the stairs, right? So what do we know about Daylenn? Daylenn is from Big Island. He is a high school student. There are conflicting reports on how old he is. I kind of narrowed down his birthday to on or around September 24th, just from thank you posts on his Facebook page. There were a lot of thank you posts, I think, on the 24th. So I don't know if it was that day, the day before, or somewhere in there. So somewhere around September 24th. And he's either 17 or 18. I don't know. There's conflicting reports in the KHON news articles and the HHN news articles. Some say 17, some say 18. It's unsure. But either way, if he was about that age, he would have been a high school junior or senior for sure, right?
Right.
So he's from Big Island. He traveled to Oahu for a school trip, according to the sources. And he was staying with his grandmother in Waianae, right? That's on the west side of the island.
Yeah.
So he's a high school student. He doesn't have access to a vehicle. So what he wants to do, because he's visiting the island for this school trip, is take one day of the, 3 to 5 days that he's going to be here and try and get this hike done and then return home safely, a couple weeks later. I have the date written down for when he was scheduled to fly back. We'll get there. We're just going to kind of go day by day, right? So starting on that Wednesday, I'm not sure what day he arrived on island, but I want to say it was either the day before, that Tuesday, the 24th, or maybe even that Monday, or maybe even that Sunday, because he wasn't planning on staying here for very long, right? Because he was coming for a class trip, right? I didn't get any reports on what that class trip was, where it was going to be, how many students were going to be there.
Yeah, I didn't see anything for that either. I didn't see
anything about the class trip. It just kept getting mentioned over and over again that was the reason why he came to Oahu for the week, or less than a week, maybe 5 days or so. So on Wednesday the 25th, assuming he was either... I think when he made this post, he was at his grandma's house, because the post was made at 3:54 p.m., and the post says, "Stairway to Heaven, hiking this insane hike tomorrow. Wish me luck." And a lot of excited emojis and happiness and a couple of leaf emojis, because Daylenn was certainly an outdoorsman. There's a lot of photographs on his Facebook of him out on trails, probably on Big Island, because he's with a lot of water in a lot of the photographs. So there's a lot of aquifers and waterfalls and stuff like that on Big Island. There's a few here, but not as many. So I think that those were taken on Big Island. So he's certainly an outdoorsman, an experienced hiker, grew up on the island, so he's very familiar with the climate and how it can come and go so fast. So I think he at least has that working for him. But I think that his youth and his drive to do this hike and his severe understanding of how difficult it would be is ultimately what got him in trouble in the first place, right? Mm-hmm. So he makes this Facebook post on the 25th, and there's a few comments underneath it that I thought should be showcased at least, because he responds to two of them, and that kind of gives us our first clue as to how he decided to do the hike, and how we know, based on this and his photographs, that he didn't go the Kaneohe side up the stairs. He never, right. In fact, according to every report that I can see and every picture that he posted, I don't think he ever even made it to the summit.
Right.
I think he just got lost along the way. So a couple of the posts are just like, "Oh my gosh, isn't it closed?" Of course, because that's what everyone says, because it's been closed since, 1985, 1984, something like that, when that landslide took out a chunk of the bottom part of the stairs. And then it's the property has changed hands several times. I think currently the Honolulu watershed owns the property, the land that it's on, which is why it's such a huge deal if you're caught up there, because you could be... if you're caught, you will be fined. Yep. Currently, that fine is about $1,000, and then you also have a court date. So the court date thing is tricky, because if you're doing the hike and you're visiting from off island, you got to come back for the court date.
Right.
So it's not just so much as pay the fine. There's your entry fee. You know what I mean? So
right.
They're going to make a lesson out of you. If you get caught. So it's a big deal not to do it. Anyways, back to his post. So a few friends say, "Don't do it. It was closed, right? You're going to get a citation." He says, yeah, it's closed, and yes, you can get a citation, but the citation isn't that bad. But there's other ways to getting to the stairs without breaking any laws, right? So anybody who does any research on this through Reddit threads and other message boards, if you really want to do this hike, you do a little research and try to figure out how to not get caught, because everybody knows if you do this hike, you will be caught if you do it wrong, right?
Right.
I mean, we knew that going in.
Yeah.
So
basically, going straight up the stairs is the riskier part.
Is the riskier part, right? Because there's security at the base of the stairs. Sometimes they'll send a security guard up the stairs, and he'll hide in either the summit or one of the buildings below. I've heard reports about that. And they'll catch you that way, because the moment you step a toe on the concrete, you're trespassing, right? Yeah. And so that's an easy fine for them. Hey, caught you,
right.
Here we are, ID please, that sort of thing, right? So he says, there's other ways to get there without breaking the law, right? So everybody calls this Mauna Loa Valley way the air quotes legal way, right? And we heavy on the air quotes, because technically it's still illegal.
It's still illegal,
right?
Yeah.
You can do the hike all the way to the back of the ridge line and never leave the valley. That's all completely legal and open to the public, even to this day, even though they briefly closed it a few months ago. But as soon as you get up on the ridge line and up over the hill, that's when you start getting into the gray area of whether it's legal or not, because some say it is, some say it isn't. It's unclear where the hard line is for the trespassing property line is. So there's so many things, you know. It's obviously this is a big risk, and anybody who knows anything about this, especially if you've grown up out here, you know the risk involved financially and with the law, you know.
Right.
So he's aware of that. We can see that from his post here, right? And then someone underneath that says about the landslide, which took out a chunk of the stairs in the 80s, right? Be careful. And he says, yeah, that happened earlier in February. Oh, that's right. There was the second landslide in February of this year, of that 2015, where the another chunk of the stairs got taken out. And he says, you know, that happened in early February. And the stairs are broken at the beginning, but that's not the only way to the top of the ridge. And then I highlighted here, I'm taking a different way. Thanks. I'll be careful. Right. So he's aware of risk. He knows to be careful. And he is also aware that he's not going up the front way. So that's two pieces that he wrote handwritten. I'm going a different way. I know the other way. Right. So that's how we know just from this post that he went up the Mauna Loa ridge instead of the front way, right? And if you know anything about Oahu, the island is separated by two mountain chains. West and east side are separated by the Waianae Range, and the north and south side are separated by the Ko'olaus. Mm-hmm. And this mountain is one of the top 22 peaks of the Ko'olau Range. So it's very tall. I mean, the top, I want to say the top 30 peaks in the Ko'olau Range, from highest to lowest on the 20th. We're talking about just a few hundred meters between the difference of the top and the bottom. So they're all pretty much, extremely tall. And everything's going to be over 2,800 feet, right? It's a lot of elevation gain. So we know from this post that he's deciding to go that way. Okay. The other thing we know is he doesn't have access to a vehicle, right? So on the morning. So that post was made at 3:54. I didn't get the screenshots on when he replied, but I want to say they were pretty close to around when he posted. So about 5:30, and then shortly after that, maybe about 6 or so, he makes another post where he shares like a dance video because he was interested in dance, and then there's some silly comments under that. So I think, and this is something that I don't hear a lot of people talking about, but I think he got a good night's rest. Mm-hmm. I think he knew he was going to get up early in the morning because his grandmother warned him. That's in a couple of the articles. Don't go. She warned him many times. Don't go. So I think he got up early for two reasons. One, to sneak out of the house because he was aware that she wasn't going to let him go. And two, that he had to get on a bus from Waianae and take it all the way to this ridge. And just on Google Maps, we know that bus ride takes about 2 hours to 2.5 hours. Okay. So that's the morning of Thursday, February 26, 2015. He has a post at 5:34 a.m. that says on Facebook, "And the hike begins." But you and I have talked about this. We don't know if that's when he's standing in the park in Mauna Loa Valley.
Right.
Or when he gets on the
because
bus.
He has cell service.
Correct.
And that was our argument. We're like, well, he has cell service.
In the park, he has cell service. But once you get on the trail, maybe 300 or 400 feet in, that's when we all lost cell service, right? Mm-hmm. Because the tree line is very thick, the bushes are very thick, everything just tanks. And then the mountains obviously climb as you get deeper into the valley, right?
Yeah, and you really don't. I mean, in my experience, remembering I didn't really gain significant service until you're way high up.
Yeah,
again.
You have T-Mobile, right?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. I had Verizon, and I knew mine lasted a little longer than yours, but this was, so 2015 would have been the era of T-Mobile was one of the strongest on island as far as service goes. Mm-hmm. And I just know from other reports that he had an iPhone 4, and it's possible, I think, that he had T-Mobile. So it's one of the most affordable rates. So just banking on that and figuring out when your service tanked in 2024, we know that he lost service starting the hike easily within the first 200 feet of the hike.
Right.
And that's 9 minutes in or so, something like that.
Yeah.
So he makes this post at 5:34 a.m. My theory is that post starts when he's getting on the bus. because otherwise the timeline doesn't make sense unless he got severely lost.
Okay.
So if he gets on the bus at 5:30, that's 2 hours. Let's call it 2.5. That puts him at 8 a.m. to start the hike, right? We know that from the last bus stop in Mauna Loa Valley, because we timed it the last time we were there, that it's a 9-minute walk from the bus stop to the park. And then from the park to the first flash flood sign is an hour and 5 minutes. And then from the park to the back of the valley, because this is the other thing too. If you do the hike, it's very easy to miss the turn to go up the ridge line.
Yeah.
Because the hike continues to the back of the valley. And the first time I did this hike with you, we made this mistake because we didn't know where we were going. We had an idea, and I knew about the turn, but because
we still missed it, and we knew about the turn.
And we knew about it. But the bushes and the trees are so thick in the jungle that it's very easy to miss this turn if you don't know what you're looking for.
Right.
And because so many hikers do this and there's not a clear defined trail, there's 2 different turns that you can make, both of which lead to the same destination.
Right.
But one is further back than the one if you miss. So one is a little more clearly defined than the other. But if it's pitch black and you don't know where you're going, it's very easy to make this turn. So just for argument's sake, you and I did this just for science and walked to the back of the valley to see how much time that would take out of your journey, right?
Right.
So we walked to the back of the valley and then circled back to where we know the turn is, right?
Yeah.
And that took about 2 hours and 20 minutes. Okay. So if he misses the turn and goes to the back of the valley and then circles back and finds it, or the other thing too, we talked about this, is he could have ran into other hikers since it's starting to get a little more daylight out, more hikers appear on the trail. They could have said, hey, we're going this way,
or
and then
point you in the right direction. That does happen a lot, too.
It does happen a lot, especially out here. People are very friendly, you know. So it's highly likely, even on a Wednesday, that he could have ran into tourists that were just as lost as he was and found his way that way. Mm-hmm. We know he found the ridgeline because he has pictures that he posted from the ridgeline. Right. Okay. So we're looking at about, let's see, 5, 3, 8, 9. So he would be getting on the ridgeline about 10 or so, right? Because I can't remember which article it was, but around 11 a.m.-ish, he posted 4 photographs on Instagram, and he had his Instagram linked to his Facebook profile.
Okay.
And that's how we have the timestamp on that. So the 4 photos are the ones that come into question and start this whole other theory about the vindictive hiker theory.
Okay.
That is on like so many other videos and why it continues to be a story told today. But we're here today to basically dispel that theory because it's a nothing burger. It legitimately is. There's absolutely no way.
Nobody's going to follow you for 4 hours to murder you.
No one's going to follow you for that much time through that much shrubbery. And the other thing, too, we know is that he started the hike with slippers on, shorts, and a red T-shirt. Or was it white?
White.
It was a white T-shirt. Red backpack. That's what it was. Red backpack, white T-shirt, slippers. Right? This is the kind of hike you want expensive hiking boots on.
He had shorts.
Yeah.
He had shorts on.
So it's February. It's cold. It's rainy. It's the rainy season. That's the other thing, too. As I've done this hike when it's dry, and I've done this hike when it's wet. And it sucks both ways.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. There's no easy way to do this hike.
Yeah.
Because no matter what, you're going to slip, right? And the more people who do it, the more erosion happens. It's not a defined trail, yada, yada, right? So to do it in slippers, when we did this test to see how far out back we could go, I decided to wear mine, right? And what happened? We got stuck in the mud, right? Because if you get, this is even before the turn, there are big,
mud puddles.
Yeah, lows where the mud is
it's
3 to 5
unavoidable.
inches thick.
It's unavoidable.
It's completely unavoidable.
Yeah.
And I lost a shoe, right?
Yeah.
We're just walking through regular, and I lost a shoe. So that factors into the timeline, too, as to how. Yeah. So maybe he did get a slip of stuck. Maybe he did have to try and figure out his way around these mud puddles,
Yeah.
Because in the dark, you can't really tell.
Yeah.
Because it just looks like the trail,
Yeah, I'm wondering if he had a flashlight or what.
There were no reports that he had one. I don't know that he would have brought one. I feel like if he was smart, he could have. I think it's in the realm of possibility. And it certainly would have made it easier to find, right, if he had fallen. I think he could use that as a reference. So
Probably didn't. And then are you going to use your phone that whole time? Like realistically, probably not. I've used my phone, but it doesn't last long.
there's that.
You know?
I think he used his phone. Because the flashlight, because especially if he had an iPhone 4, easy to turn the flashlight on. So he probably used his phone as a flashlight, and that just burns the battery because it takes 2 hours just to get to the ridge line.
Oh, yeah.
And if he didn't put his phone in airplane mode, it's going to be searching for that service the whole time you're in the valley, which just burns the battery that much more.
Yeah.
And the iPhone 4 battery wasn't even that great to begin with.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I think he used his flashlight on his phone instead of having an actual one. And then there's a piece...
It was a gloomy day, too. So.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, too, that a lot of people don't know about this valley range. If you spend any time on the Ko'olaus, it doesn't matter which chunk of the Ko'olaus you're on, the rain comes and goes so fast.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you are in clear as day. I can see to the other side of the island, like, oh my gosh, there's Kaneohe. And within minutes, you've got a cloud so thick you can't see 20 feet in front of you. It happens that fast.
And the wind is so loud, we couldn't hear each other being 5 feet from each other.
Yep.
So the fact that they even heard him down the road.
We'll get to that. Yeah.
We'll get to that part.
Okay, so he posts the photos around 11 a.m., right? We know from KITV4 sourced the police records and the phone records that he lost cell phone activity around 3:30 p.m. that day. So I think he gets to that first ridge line where you have service, right? Because he wouldn't be able to post the photos without the service. And so Grant here, this is going to be Google Earth 2. So I have this image here. This is a Google Earth capture of the Mauna Loa Valley, and in the purple, that's the 2 hour mark, right? All of that in the valley there takes 2 hours to get from the park in the base of the valley all the way through the trail and to the start of the ridge line where you have to make the turn, okay?
Okay.
The red is the ridge line, okay? And I should have marked it, but there is... Maybe I'll add it to the photo a little later on for Grant, but I'll just put, let's say, point A is going to be where those photos were taken.
Okay.
Okay, because when you get up to here, there's that kind of lookout area, and it's like a platform, right?
Yeah, I recognize that photo immediately.
Yeah, I mean because we stood there,
Yeah.
So I think those first photos were taken right about there or on his way up. And that's also where you'd probably start to have cell phone service too, and where you'd start taking pictures. So we know from the photos that that visibility was there, but not all the way up. You could see the clouds in the photographs. Here we go. Here's the 4 photos. Okay. In the 4 photos, photo 1, it looks like he's looking back at the valley. Maybe the east side.
Yeah, because it really literally shows that.
Yeah. Photo 2, he's standing on the ridge line looking back down, but you can barely see the rest of the valley. So see how fast the fog rolled in there?
Right.
We know visibility is going to be low. He's probably getting wet. Like you can see from the dirt that it's darker color, so it's probably mud.
Overcast too, yeah.
Overcast the whole way up. Photo 3 is the one that everybody's freaking out about. We'll get back to that in just a moment. And then photo 4 is him looking up the trail that he's about to go up. And it's a shame that in photo 3 that people keep talking about this one because this one's looking down the trail. And people think... here's the theory, right? So the theory on like Reddit posts and other videos, like... let me pull up my little reference here. I know... that Watch Mojo had a video about top 30 normal-looking photographs, which is with disturbing back stories. He was featured as number 24 on the list. There is a coffee house crime video, and he highlighted this photo as well. And there is a channel called Tragic Tales, and they also highlighted this photo as well. But a lot of them don't touch on the other 3. And I think for context, it's important. So he's basically standing at the ridgeline. So what do you do when you go hiking, right? When you get to the view, you take all your pictures, right? So this, I think, is what he was doing. So, he gets one to the left, one to the right, one behind him, one above, right? It's like, here's where I am. This is what it looks like. And from the pictures, we can see that visibility is extremely low. And in photo 3, if we blow it up, you can see that there's another hiker in the trail. Now, in these other videos, they talk about how this image is somebody, quote, hiding in the bushes, which is just not true. I mean, here's a higher resolution of photo 3. You can see that there's a person there, but he's not hiding in the bushes. If you've ever been on this trail, that's the trail. Like that, there is no trail. It just looks like that.
Yeah.
He's looking down the ridgeline, which is very narrow to begin with.
Yeah.
And this is just another hiker coming up.
Behind him, yeah.
Exactly. So this guy is just kind of looking, and he's taking a step.
Well, my argument, because my friend and I were talking about it, I said if you wanted to hide in the trail, all you needed to do is lay down.
Exactly.
No one could literally see you
That's
at all.
all you could do.
So, like...
It's that simple. And he's wearing dark clothes.
Because you can see him, he's not hiding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's wearing dark clothes as well. So, like, he's just another hiker. And he's trying to get up the trail just like him. He may have been coming up on Daylenn on his way up.
I could not imagine being that hiker.
I know, right?
And seeing that kid.
Who knows if he even made it. Maybe he took a break right there, and Daylenn kept going and slipped and fell, and this guy never even saw him. Or maybe this guy passed him on his way up. That's what I was
thinking, yeah.
Daylenn took some time to take a break because who knows if he even brought water. We don't know that.
Yeah.
They never found the pack. We know that he had his phone. That's the only thing that we know he has because he took the pictures, right? Because he's an experienced hiker, I'd imagine he would have taken some water, right? But maybe not enough because you don't know how long this is going to take if you've never done it before. And it's extremely taxing because to get to right where he took this photo, what did we say? That's about 3 hours of hiking if he missed the turn, 2.5 if he's hoofing it and actually made the turn. 2.5 hours.
Dang.
Into a ridgeline with no cell phone service.
Yeah.
Why would anybody vindictive spend that much time following somebody through the woods and not take care of things when cell phone service was gone? Why would he wait till cell phone service came back up and climbed up the ridge another couple hundred feet?
Yeah, that's a great point.
It just doesn't make any sense. So this whole vindictive hiker that he was murdered is just a nothing burger.
Yeah.
There's just
it
nothing
makes
to
zero
it.
sense.
It doesn't make any sense. And the only people that are propelling that theory are people who have never been there and just look at this photo and assume.
Yeah.
And it's really
sad.
sad.
Are also not from here.
That.
So you're like,
yeah.
You know.
They don't understand how thick the jungle is here. I mean, you and I know when we did Mount Kaala a couple of years ago. Yeah. It got so thick we had knives with us, but we didn't even have... Those knives weren't enough to get through.
Yeah.
We needed machetes, right?
Yeah.
So, the jungle out here is extremely thick, and people don't talk about that enough, especially on this trail, especially in this time.
Well, that's why they didn't find him.
Exactly.
I mean, it's so thick.
Yeah.
If you are not on, and the trail is barely a trail, so even if you're not on that trail, if you steer off that trail even a little bit,
yep, you're gonna slip.
No one can find you. So and that's what's funny, and I think that makes a great point is the fact that you can see the person.
Yeah.
Already tells you they're not hiding.
Exactly.
Because you could just lay on the ground and not be seen.
Yep, it's that simple.
And I would definitely, if I was gonna murder somebody, wouldn't let them take a picture of me.
Yeah, that too. And this is the kind of thing where if you're this hiker and you're looking up at the platform where he's standing, you're stoked because you're like, oh, finally a break,
Yeah.
Because this chunk is not fun.
Yeah.
You know, it gets worse from there.
Yep.
But just that beginning chunk is not fun just to get to the first ridgeline when you can finally pop up over and see everything around you. So, yeah, that's certainly one of the biggest reasons why we wanted to make this podcast, because that whole theory is just a nothing burger to begin with.
Yeah, and I think highlighting the main other factors are important, right? Mm-hmm. This is somebody who also went on a hike by themselves.
Yeah.
So,
not smart.
Yeah, not smart. Realistically, what's going to happen on hikes when you go by yourself is you are going to see other hikers. Mm-hmm. That's totally normal. And a lot of the times I see people, with no shoes on, with not enough water, with not enough food, and they end up turning around or whatever.
Or getting lost.
Or getting lost.
I did a waterfall hike last year, and I know the trail. I've done it several times and did a few times with you. We ran into hikers that were visiting, and they had been lost out there all morning. They were lost for 3 hours, and this is a pretty simple hike.
Yeah.
They just made a wrong turn and couldn't find their way back.
Wow.
And they were exhausted because it's one of those hikes that you kind of like, it's easy to begin with. And then you hike down the valley. And if you don't know where you're going, everything looks the same in any direction that you look. And if you're from the city and you're just trying to do a simple hike that somebody recommended once, you're going to get lost, So when we found them, they were holding like a Gucci backpack. They were out of water and had been for like 2 hours.
Oh my gosh.
And they definitely were not experienced hikers just by the short conversation we had with them. They were like, somebody told us this was going to be fun,
Not fun.
Yeah, not fun. We're lost. And we were like, hey, here's where you need to go when you get to this
part. And if
part.
it's hot, and then that's even worse.
Even worse.
You don't want to be without water.
Yep. But I think temperature would have been in the like 70s or so, maybe even into the high 60s that morning because it would have been February.
My biggest concern with the weather in his situation is once he went missing, how the length of time
that
right?
it took to even figure it all out. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get to that. All right, so his story kind of ends on that Friday. Or I'm sorry, on that Thursday, because his last cell phone activity was reported by the police at, this is via KITV4, at around 3:30 p.m. is when
and they were
his last
saying that
known
his
cell phone
grandmother
activity.
had dinner prepared for him.
Yep.
He didn't show up. She knew he was doing the hike. And when he
Exactly.
didn't return around dinner time,
Yep.
she was concerned.
Started to get concerned, yeah. And then you go to sleep, wake up the next morning thinking, oh, maybe he just got lost. Maybe he got caught up with a friend, whatever the reason.
Poor grandma, man.
Well, the other thing, too, is like a lot of times with missing people is they always tell you to wait 24 hours before you report missing, especially with kids, right? Because how many – I wish I had the figures in front of me, but there's such a large percentage of, quote, runaways that come back within, 18, 20 hours, 24 hours, 48 hours,
Yeah.
And if we wind up using all those resources to try and find these kids who are going to ultimately come back within those first times, they wouldn't have time to get anything else done. So I understand the reasoning for waiting 24 hours to report somebody missing, but at the same time, it's hard to know the legitimacy of how missing this person could be when you know they could be, out with their friends at the mall just ignoring you and being a teenager versus he went and did a hike alone and we haven't seen him since.
Right, which I think it sounds like they took it seriously knowing that he was on the hike.
I think so, too. So according to KHON, on the morning of Friday, February 27th, 2015, he is reported missing. All they know is probably the report from the grandma that he was going to do Haiku Stairs, right? So again, this is a mountain range. There's a front face and a back face. The back face is the northern face, which faces Kaneohe, and that's where the stairs are. The back face isn't even the stairs at all. There are no stairs on the back face. It's just this Mauna Loa Valley and the ridge line that takes you up to the summit of the stairs where the satellite is, okay? Because the Hawaii Fire Department don't know that he took that route, they spend the entire first day searching on the Haiku side.
Oh, okay.
And that's reported by KITV4.
So total waste of
all
the
of
search
day
on that
one,
day.
helicopter looping. In fact, I did find like an 8-second video back then. It must have been like a Vine or something that somebody made where it's the helicopter literally just circling in that valley, So they spent an entire day searching on the wrong side of the mountain. And I guess after just kind of diving into his Facebook posts and his Instagram posts, they realized that he never went up that way. And finally on, I think it is, let's see here. He's reported missing on the Friday the 27th. They begin searching on the Haiku side. Okay. Oh, here we go. So on Saturday the 28th is when he was supposed to return home. This is reported by... Yep,
Got it.
That's when his flight home was going to be to Big Island, reported by KITV4. So they continue searching on that morning as well. So
and we talked about that might have been his main motivation, right? Is he had this one window, day to do it.
Yep.
So I'm going to do it.
So we know that his flight is on Saturday. So that tells me that the class trip must have been that Thursday or maybe that Wednesday or something like that, however long he was on island. So this was the last thing he was going to do before returning home, right? That was his motivation. So he literally took the day before, because we know via KITV4 that they reported that his flight was supposed to be that morning of February 28th, of Saturday. So they continue searching efforts from 6:30 a.m. to 7 a.m. on Saturday the 28th. They report that the weather is so poor they can't even get a helicopter up. So that's how thick the fog is on the next day. How bad was it on the day he was there?
Right.
So finally, maybe in 2 hours later, the crew does go up. They send a helicopter. You can only do so much, right? So if you're flying with a helicopter in dense, thick fog through a mountain range with peaks and valleys all over the place, it's extremely difficult to get close enough to see anything, let alone
It's also dangerous.
Yeah, that too.
Extremely dangerous.
If you don't know where you're at and can't pinpoint, especially the speed of a helicopter, they could go down too. And then there's a whole nother rescue effort that has to go up. So conditions were extremely poor for the rescue effort. Okay. And that was just on the very next day.
And there was a group of hikers that were willing to go
Okay,
search,
yeah, let's
right?
get there. So that
Like on
Saturday,
foot.
there was, this is from a Reddit post. Let me see if I find the original post.
I think like most of them were like volunteers and
Yeah,
stuff.
they were visitors. I read that they were nurses, not from Island. They were from the mainland. And they decided to do the hike. There were a few of them, and they wound up splitting up into two different groups.
Okay, so we're talking about the ones that heard him.
Yes, these are the ones that heard him 24 hours later. So let me see if I can pull that post up real quick, and we'll read off the post, because it's quite eerie to hear them say it. And, I mean, they always say don't believe what you read on the internet, but, like...
No, Reddit's real.
The depth with which they had details...
Yeah.
of what they said makes me really believe that they did genuinely hear this, because the two groups, like it was the one group and then they split into two. Both the groups call 911 because they both heard
At the
him.
same time. Yeah.
Yep, they both heard him. Okay, so let's see here.
By the way, the wind is so loud.
Yeah.
I think even the fact that they heard him is probably just because of that valley area, but that's still like quite a miracle. If it was windy and rainy, who knows? I mean,
well, the wind comes and goes up there, right? So it's like strong at points, and then there are points where you're in the tree line and it kind of disappears for a while, so that helps as well.
Right.
So maybe, who knows if they were on the tree line or if they had made it to the ridge. Who knows exactly where they were.
He probably heard them and was like, I got to start yelling.
Yeah, he probably heard them just chatting,
Yeah.
As you do on a hiking trail, and that's when he started screaming for help, right? All right, so the Reddit post reads, a lot, this is from 10 years ago. They must have made the post either the day after or no more than like a week later, because the detail with which this post is made is as though it was made within a day or so of this actually happening. So this person says, a lot of people have their information mixed up. I could never explain to you the feeling that I felt when you hear a cry like that. The hiker did not trespass and go up the stairs. By the looks of photographs, he didn't even make it to the stairs. The hiker went up the Mauna Loa way. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the Reddit post from... Okay, this is actually interesting. I don't know if you stumbled upon this, but this is actually the Reddit post from a local who decided to fly a drone over the area, take some pictures, and asked for help on Reddit. Hey, help me look for this kid. He's missing.
Right.
Anyway, so he's kind of briefly explaining the story here, right? So he also says, hey, based on the pictures, came to the same conclusion you and I did, that he went up the Mauna Loa way based on the pictures and the Facebook posts, right? I'm sorry, he wasn't a local. So he says, I'm not a local. I don't really know any of the name of the ridges. All I can do is try my best to explain to the others where we went and where it was that we heard him. Okay, so this is one of the hikers who was there. We started the hike on the trail about 20 feet from the trailhead, and we hiked about 3 hours up. Okay, so that means they made it to probably the second ridge line. Second platform, if you will, up the ridge line.
Yeah.
Somewhere around that area, which makes me think that he got to that, not the hard part, but the slippery part. And that's maybe where he slipped. I think he slipped off the west side of the ridge.
Yeah.
So this is where they're reporting that he heard, that they heard him screaming for help, right? So we hiked about 3 hours up. We were yelling at each other to make sure the others were okay because we were so far apart. So again, I want to say it was between like 4 and 6 people in this group, and then they split into a few different parties because one was just going faster than the other. The wind died down just for half a second, and we hear a scream, "Help me." It shook me up so bad that I had to sit down to even call 911. My friends were about 50 yards in front of me, and little did I know, they were also calling 911. All 5 of us heard it at the same time. If we were going straight at the trail, the voice was coming from the left. Okay, so there you go. So if you're looking up the ridge line, that means he fell off the west-hand side, okay, which is exactly what I thought because the slope of the trail goes in that direction.
Right.
And the other side of it has way more like shrubbery that you could just grab on the way down.
True, yeah.
So I think that
remember
rock
that.
face part is where he maybe slipped. Because again, we know he's doing this in slippers, and he may have even taken them off by then because it probably got stuck and gunked up with mud and all that,
Yeah.
So if he's doing it in slippers or barefoot, it's very easy to slip down that ridge line, right? So they continue to say, it did not seem as though it was echoing, nor did it seem very far away. The scary thing is that after about an hour, once the rescuers were there, my friend and I were bound and determined to get to the top of the stairs, so we decided to continue on. And the other 3 stayed where they were. As we were continuing the ridge, we could hear firemen, rescuers down below whistling and calling for him. Again, the wind died down just a tad, and we heard, "I'm down here." My friend and I both stopped in our tracks and started screaming for him. It was not the rescuers. The voice was different from the calls of the rescuers. I immediately called 911 again. We stayed up there for about another hour, moving to try and listen for him again. The wind was so bad and the clouds are starting to roll in, it was so hard to hear anything. My friend and I, that heard the last cry, are heading up the ridge tomorrow, the same way that we went Monday. It's hard to explain where the location was that we heard it, as well as the voice where it was coming from. So in an effort to find him, we're going back tomorrow. When I get off work at 7:30 a.m., please keep me updated on here and this other person he's referring to. I'll take a look at the drone pictures. Okay. So this post is a reply to somebody who says, hey, there's a local missing boy that we now know as Daylenn. This is a professional photographer who made this post and said, hey, I'm a local photographer. I flew the drone over. Here's some photographs. I put them in a Google Drive. Anybody who was there, please take a look at the photographs and in some way try to describe where you maybe heard the screams from to kind of help rescuers, right? This is a valiant effort, honestly. This guy really went out of his way to try and help. Okay, so just from the post alone, we know that they did the hike on Monday, right? So that's what he said. Where is it? They were going to go back again the next day, but he said Monday, right? So we know that
he's been
there a couple days. Yeah. So he goes missing Friday. Saturday, all day rescue efforts on the wrong side. Sunday, more rescue efforts on the Haiku side, reported by KITV4. So 2 days they spend searching on the wrong side of the mountain range. And I'm sure he's hearing the helicopters because it echoes up and over the Ko'olaus. So then on that Monday, that's when these nurses do the hike and hear them. So this is March 2nd now. This is 2 full days have passed.
Likely people aren't even doing the hike on Saturday and Sunday because it's such bad weather at that point.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe they try and
or they
fail
saw the helicopter
or whatever.
And it deterred them.
Or that. Yeah, any other reason, it depends. I would say that attendance on the trail those 2 days was probably low because of those 2 factors.
Right.
Not more than normal, I think I read somewhere that on average about 100 people a day do this trail, or at least did in that time frame before it really got crazy. So for 2 full days, he's out there. So on Monday, that's when they hear that's when they hear him crying for help, right? So, man, dude, 2 full days of being out in the wilderness completely alone. He probably broke something, so he can't like crawl out or, continue to the bottom of the valley and find his way back.
Right.
Who knows how far he tried to, army crawl his way up the ridge or pull himself to safety or even just sit up or
And then
do
with no
anything.
food and stuff, you're
Yeah.
gonna run out of energy. And
If he had a water bottle, he could have at least survived on water because of so much rain in the area that he could have at least filled up just by drippings of either from the sky or from any of the trees that are nearby. You could have filled up a water bottle.
Right.
So who knows? Maybe he was doing that for 2 days to just try and survive, you know? I think because he was there for 2 days that he must have broke something. He must have, because otherwise there's no way he would not try to crawl out.
Right.
Because we know
even
he's,
slowly.
Yeah, he's an outdoorsman. He is an avid hiker. He's a strong kid. You know, he must have broke something or many things on his way down, and that's why he was compelled to stay still. You know, and who knows if he made himself more visible by clearing any shrubbery away or any of the trees. Maybe he was under something, but even if he made that attempt, the fog, again, was so thick and the wind was so strong that rescue workers couldn't see him, couldn't hear him, couldn't do anything.
Obviously, the first 2 days are pretty much a waste.
And the first 2 days are a waste, you know.
So not even looking in the right place.
According to the Reddit thread, they heard the rescue workers, so they must have maybe volunteer rescue workers went up the Mauna Loa side, and official rescue workers were working in the helicopters on the Haiku side. That could be. Because there's another report later on where there's a whole group of volunteer rescue hikers,
right?
Maybe 8 or 10 or so, who show up to the Mauna Loa Valley Park with the family and go up to try and search.
They had to get rescued? One of them?
I don't remember if it was the first day or the second, but yes, one of them did have to be rescued in an attempt to try and find this kid. You know,
so not great conditions at all. Like,
no,
just
conditions
are
just
worst time to go missing.
As bad as they possibly could get. Okay, so that's the Reddit thread, the eerie Reddit thread from that Monday, March 2nd, 2015. And then there's a couple of people who are trying to say, hey, have you seen, there's like a Facebook post where they're posting, I guess they made a Facebook group at some point. The family made a Facebook group saying, you know, if you have updates, post here.
They were trying to make it more visible
trying
as
to
well.
do anything.
Because I think after the third day, technically they stopped until they, they stopped until they heard until the nurses made those calls. Then they continued again.
KITV4 reported that on Tuesday the 3rd that the search was suspended at 2 p.m. that day. And then the search emergency starts again after hearing this report from the nurses. So they take their standard, whatever it is, 3 to 5 days to search for somebody, call it quits. And then this tip comes in.
So this tip came in.
Yeah. This was
but
reported
they didn't know
to police.
About it.
This was reported to police, this tip.
I see.
So these nurses must have, well, we know they called 911 at least 3 times. So the first group called, the second group called, and then the first group called a second time, right? So they called, there must be 911 calls of this. So the police have access to that.
Interesting. But there was a delay because if they were already searching.
They were searching on the 2nd, but this is the morning of the 2nd where this happened. The 911 calls happen. They started searching that afternoon, the next day, Tuesday the 2nd. And it probably took them a while to legitimize, you know, the calls coming in, or at least get that report to the searcher or the rescue efforts.
I see.
And so they start again after hearing that report. Okay. So it was received probably the 2nd or maybe even the 3rd. Who knows when they actually reported it to police? All we know is that there's 3 911 calls that did exist, and that the police probably have access to that. So within that 18 to 24 hours. That report comes in, they continue search efforts, right? Again, obviously nothing was found on Tuesday the 3rd. Continuing to March the 4th, Wednesday, March the 4th, KHON 2 News reports on the 4th, and HSM 37 also. Oh, I'm sorry, HSM 37 I think is the name of the helicopter that is the rescue helicopter searching around. I don't have anything written for Thursday the 5th, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think if they continued search efforts, I didn't see any reports on the 5th. Again, for the 6th. On Saturday the 7th, so now we've got almost a full week has passed. And that's when the volunteer search teams show up. There's a video that I have for that as well. The volunteer searchers go up at this rate, they're convinced they're just looking for, just there's no way he must have survived. So they're just kind of looking for whatever's left, right? And again, a valiant effort, but no, nothing was ever found. His body was never found. His remains were never found. No items, his backpack, his T-shirt, his cell phone were ever recovered. And I think that says a lot to the story and the danger of the ridgeline that he fell down. It's just inaccessible. It's just inaccessible. I mean, some of the rescue workers were rappelling down, and you can only have so much,
But again, do we know that they knew where to rappel, right?
There's that too. They're only kind of going off their best guesses.
Yeah, they could be going off the other side.
Yep. Yeah. So, yeah, they could have been on the wrong side. They could have been on the east side of the ridge instead of the west.
It makes me want to go so bad.
Yeah, I know.
To go and try to find something.
If nothing else, to give the family peace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Who knows? It's a really tragic story. It's really sad. But there's sad. A lot of reports from a lot of local news. I can definitely leave a whole list of links below because there's many, many videos about this. It was a very big story during that entire week. And then I want to say there was one other video I found that was like a week after the search efforts had stopped, that more volunteer rescue workers were still trying to find him.
To at least take the hike.
Yep. So Hawaii News Now posted on it a few times. KHON2 made several reports about it, probably 6 or 7 or so. There was a GoFundMe that was set up to help the family. I can leave that link below as well. And KITV4 was the other news source that posted about it. But yeah, it's a really tragic story, and you want nothing but to give the family peace. But it's just sadly a lesson in what not to do when going hiking alone. A lot of mistakes were made. I'm sure he was extremely ambitious to get to the top. Because when you're doing that hike, all you can think about is seeing the stairs and the view and stuff.
Yeah.
But having done it
realistically too, though, like even if he got to the top, he wouldn't have had a very good view.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Having done it personally myself a few times,
there would have been you can't really see anything if you're going on a day that's not clear.
Sometimes when you get
and then even when you do have a clear moment, right?
Sometimes when you get to the summit, you have to wait an hour or two before a cloud passes in between a different cloud. Yeah, we didn't even have a good view when we went. And you can see like a window of Kaneohe instead of the entire bay. So all you ever see on the internet is these beautiful pictures of a clear day that was probably done in the spring or the summer.
And it was probably like 2 minutes of that.
Yeah, if that, before another cloud came rolling through. And so people get this false image in their head. Oh, look at that. I can do that. I'm an avid hiker. I know what it's like to climb up these kinds of things. So you're assuming a bunch of things. One, that there's a feasible trail that's safe and that is public access.
Not safe at all. And it's windy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, realistically, even if he didn't slip, you could have even just get blown off the side.
Yeah, that could easily have happened on that same ridge.
And that's happened to me in shoes.
Yep.
In hiking boots,
Yeah. There are parts of that trail when you're on the ridge where the trail is maybe 3 feet wide, and then another foot on either side of that is a maybe 300 to 400 foot cliff.
Yeah.
Like, it's that steep. It's that thick.
It's risky.
It's that tall. It's extremely risky.
There are people that go up with those little chain things on their feet and like little poles.
The
little spikes.
The spikes on the shoes and the poles and honestly, that's probably a way safer way to do it.
Yeah. I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying that that's how fully prepared people are.
Yep.
For that.
Yep. Because it's going to be all day. If you do this hike, it's probably the only thing you're going to do that day. Because I think
absolutely.
The day after you and I did it for the first time, gosh, I had trouble walking for like 2 days.
Oh yeah, I slept for like 18 hours probably the next day.
Well, I stupidly took like 60 pounds worth of camera gear, which was my mistake, But again, a lesson learned. A lesson learned,
Yeah.
There are so many mistakes you can make doing this hike. And sadly, Daylenn was one of those folks who did make those mistakes. So the Stairway in general is in a lot of news lately because the city's been trying to shut it down and tear it down. And there's been an effort from a local a volunteer group called Friends of Haiku Stairs who have been fighting the city in court to prevent that from happening.
Right.
You know, the Friends of Haiku Stairs have a managed access plan they have like the finances in order. They have exactly, they know how many employees it's going to take for security. They know how many people it's going to take to have volunteer guides. Like they have a beautiful laid out plan that could easily be done. But at the other side of that coin is the folks who live in haiku who, you know, often have trespassers on their property. You know, I've heard reports of guns in faces of hikers who tried to sneak up the staircase side in the wee hours of the morning. You know, dogs barking, cameras going off, lights, guns, all this stuff, you know.
Yeah, I was also reading that there really wasn't trespassers until they made it legal, too. So I don't know.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been looking at...
I don't know, but I don't know. I don't think they should close it.
I agree. I don't think they should close it either. I think it's a beautiful showcase of the island. I think that the managed access plan is completely realistic.
Right.
And I think that it should be brought up to a vote, honestly, because I feel like there'd be a strong support system to back that vote. And then it's just a matter of putting it into the efforts and shuffling
the funny
funds.
thing is, too, about like the dangers, like even if we talked about should we close it because it's dangerous, the funny thing is going another way aside from just going up the steps is actually more dangerous.
Takes more time.
Much longer.
And is way more dangerous.
Way more dangerous.
The stairs, people always say,
the stairs
they must be rickety. They must be falling apart. These stairs were built in like World War II.
And they are still kicking.
They are military grade steel.
But think about it this way: they only were damaged by a natural landslide.
Yeah,
because
that's
literally the mountain. Yeah. You know, it's on a mountain, and that's the mountain corroding. Like that's pretty normal. But the stairs themselves, being on them myself, like they're pretty dang. It's a lot more
sturdy and they're safe. You can grab on with both hands.
Than walking on a cliff.
Yep.
Tightrope feels like in some areas.
There are parts you have to pull yourself up by a rope.
Yeah.
And nothing else. And who knows if that's eroded enough that you could fall to your own perishment, you know? So.
Yeah. And any of those accidents can happen even knowing what the hike is. Even going multiple times and knowing it's still dangerous either way. Very dangerous. But going up the stairs, not as dangerous. So it's just ironic that if safety is a real concern, then allowing people to not go up the stairs doesn't really make that much sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Okay, here, I'm going to pull up another picture here. This is going to be Google Earth picture 3. This is just a screen cap from Google Earth that I put up here just for scale. Look at the size of the ridgeline and how it zigs, it zags, and the platform A that he probably made it to based on the pictures, and platform B, which is the hard part where all the ropes are.
Yeah.
He either fell there to the west side or just before that to the west side.
Right.
So I have a feeling
it's in
that he's in this area here.
Go find him.
Yeah. So it's really sad. It's really sad. But like,
what's crazy is when we went to time, so basically we went for science so that we could walk from the bus stop, kind of get more of a definitive timeline. So we wanted to see what that distance was walking from the bus stop to the beginning and things like that. We're timing it. Mm-hmm. And then Justin was also in slippers to kind of like, you know, obviously recreate all of that. And that was interesting because that helps kind of see.
Well, we learned a lot, right? Because what happened to us? A rainstorm came in.
Yeah.
While we were trying to do all this.
Yeah.
So we had actual efforts that may have happened to him on the day.
Right, yeah. Yeah, the weather changed like that.
So
the wind was so loud, it literally sounded like a car was behind us or a truck was driving behind us. That's how loud it was. And that was in the valley. And we couldn't even hear each other talking next to each other. Mm-hmm. So that did help research-wise put in perspective, like, if you're down in the valley trying to yell up to people, how difficult that could be in the first place.
Yeah.
And the miracle that they even heard him, but also they then closed that part the next day. So that was like our last opportunity to be able to do that.
So yeah, that's a very recent update. When did we do that? What day was that? Do you remember?
No. My mind erases every day before I go to bed. I feel like.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't remember when we did that, but it was a few months ago.
But because then they started doing the whole, we're going to take down the Haiku Stairs, so they didn't even want people doing that hike and being down there.
Yeah.
Because of the helicopter.
That was
going
the
back
first
and
time
forth.
that I could find where they closed the backside, where they closed the Mauna Loa Valley Park and had a cop station there 24 hours a day for whatever it was, 3 or 4 days. But that was for safety concerns for any hikers who did decide to go up the back way to prevent the helicopter effort at the peak that they were taking pieces of the stairs away.
Right.
To my knowledge, the only chunks of the stairs that they did take away aren't the main chunk of the stairs. There's like side stairs off the ridgeline that led to different. There were like other different platforms, like another tower on the other side. There's a tower on the peak a little further to the east. You can see it if it's a clear day and you get up to the top. So it may have been a chunk of stairs over on that side.
See, my fear is people aren't going to stop doing the hike.
That's the other thing, too.
And it's just making it much more dangerous.
I agree. Yeah, the more... Oh, man, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because the more they talk about how the city's going to shut it down, the more exposure the hike itself gets, because they always showcase the beautiful pictures and videos and drone photos of, how pretty it is to go up there.
And what they're talking about, yeah.
But what they never talk about, and that it constantly infuriates me, is how dangerous it can be. And they also never talk about Daylenn and how his efforts to try and get there cost him his life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's why I thought it was important to tell his story, because it's a lesson in safety, in danger, and knowing your limits. Because this hike is no joke.
Well, even just going with somebody, because if he had somebody with him and he did slip,
maybe they could have pointed him out.
Yeah,
maybe they could have
known the exact
who knows
location of where he was at, and that that's gonna change that dynamic.
That's why I think that the hiker in the picture in photograph 3. That's why I think that hiker. I think he just passed him on the way up. I think Daylenn took a break because he must have been exhausted by that rate to do all that in slippas. Like, I think he took a break and the other hiker just passed him and continued on his way.
Well, I think somebody wrote on Reddit, like, yeah, that was my friend that just did the hike. And
I did see that too. I wasn't able to verify that. But I did see that exact same post that, this person does not want to be known to the public, but that was my friend. He did report himself to police. The entire story checks out. He may have said, yeah, I saw this kid. I passed him on the way up the hike. End of story.
That doesn't really,
End of story,
that doesn't really... I couldn't even remember people that I see on hikes,
You're not really thinking about that sort of thing.
You're not.
You're not thinking about, how many people you saw versus what they look like, what they were wearing, anything like that. It's a very high-buy situation. Maybe you stop to take a break and have a quick chat.
Except the girl that fell off the cliff at the Maili pillbox, the pink pillbox.
Oh, yeah.
I saw her one time, and I literally have pictures of her on my phone because I was taking pictures, and I said, hey, and she was like, do you want me to get out of them? And I'm like, no, you're fine. My niece is going to take them from up there, and not a big deal. And then
that's a legal hike.
Months later.
That's a legal hike. Yeah, that's open to this day.
But I remember when me and my niece went, she was hiking alone, and I think she lived nearby.
Yeah, must have.
And she did it all the time probably. And
all it takes is one slip, one change of direction with the wind, one
she fell off
cloud
the other
coming
side.
in. Yeah.
So.
Ugh. It just happened so fast. I mean, not another month goes by before you hear about missing hikers or missing tourists. It's not even always tourists. Sometimes it's locals,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so be safe hiking, be smart, and prepare, Prepare,
Yeah.
that's the best thing you can do.
Yeah, do your research. I would say that a great resource is, I really like All Trails. Because All Trails will give you,
moderate, beginner.
Yep. And then the other thing too is it allows comments from other hikers who have done it, and
you can see the recent.
You can see recent.
Too. Yes.
So good. Like people are pretty active on All Trails. Say, hey, trail was bad today. Be on the lookout at this part.
Right.
Or sometimes, honestly, every time I go on All Trails, every time I look at comments, I don't think there's comments older than a day or two.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you want to do like a waterfall hike and you want to see, hey, what was the flow like that day or whatever? What were conditions like that day?
Is it worth it to do the hike?
Yeah, is it worth it? Because I can tell you, I've done waterfall hikes where you get there and it ain't flowing.
Yeah.
It's just a dense, empty puddle.
Yeah.
You know? So All Trails is a very great resource because it gives you a map. You can even download the map if you pay. You can figure out a realistic timeline for how long it's going to take you, your elevation gains, and your distance covered out and back. And it gives you realistic expectations to prepare, you know, whether or not you're going to
people
need a
can
meal,
post pictures
whatever.
and stuff too.
That too.
So that
you know?
is very helpful.
So there's plenty of
Be
resources
smart,
out there.
use technology, eat before you go.
Eat before you go. Eat on the trail. Drink plenty of water.
It was funny because when we did Stairway, I had like a McDouble in my backpack the whole time, and I ate it at the top. And I was like,
I was
thank God.
so mad at you.
I know you're mad, but
Well, because I had to wait. I had to wait for you.
I
While you
know.
guys were busy getting McDonald's.
by the way, do that hike at 5 a.m. Don't do it at 8 o'clock.
Honestly, don't do the hike.
Don't do the hike
Just
ever.
don't.
It's not worth it.
Don't. I would wait for a managed access plan.
It's
to
so
do it
2000.
on the real side.
I'm just kidding.
No. I mean, if you do,
It's just, I'm going to be honest, I never want to do it again because an 8-hour hike is not fun.
yeah.
Like once you are, I would say 4 hours total, like 2 there and 2 back is probably my max for a hike.
Yeah.
Because then it's just not enjoyable.
Yeah.
Like I only did it to do it, like
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yeah. To just check it off the list.
And I had COVID when I did it.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. I mean, most
good times.
folks, you know, they'll do
But
it
I
just to
lived.
check it off the list while they're on vacation and stuff. But I can't tell you how many times I've done it. And just in the flat bottom, in the, hour and a half to 2 hour walk that you do in the valley before you even get to the ridgeline and start.
So we're
Gaining
thinking
elevation?
up here, how long does that take, the first one?
To get to
you
the
think?
first one?
Yeah.
Probably 3 hours, 4 if you're hoofing it.
I hope I wanna go when they open it up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be, and
But I've
I
run
want to
into-
just look down. Like I'm just curious, like
I remember
what it's
yeah.
obviously it's probably like,
overgrown, and all that.
but I want to go.
I've come down this hike, in the mid-afternoon, like, 2-3 o'clock p.m. And hikers in the valley are looking for this turn to get up the ridgeline. Hey, which way to Stairway? No backpack, wearing slippers, have a small, like, 10-ounce watering can, like, and I don't tell them. Anytime I see somebody like that, nope, sorry, you're not prepared. I don't want to read about you on the news tonight.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to have been a witness to, like, last known people see you alive, No, realistically.
Yeah.
And because there's so many people who know about this hike, but don't sadly do the research it takes or the homework that you need to do it,
Yeah.
So be wary.
Don't do Stairway. That's
Don't-
gonna be the thumbnail.
Yeah,
This is why.
I would wait. I would wait till they have a legal managed access plan. And
Yes.
hopefully that'll come this year
With
or
a
next year.
guide.
We'll see. Because it's safer on the north side of it, in the Kaneohe, the haiku side. You have access to handrails. I mean, you can't get any more safe than that.
Yeah.
And even though the stairway itself is quite narrow, it's very easy to pull over there are 1, 2, 3. I want to say there's like 4
Little, like,
platforms.
platforms. Yeah.
Easy to let others pass.
Yeah. True.
And if they go up in small groups, it's a lot easier to manage how many people are with you, how long it takes, the effort, and your guide.
And track everybody.
You can track everyone, but your guide can also measure if they're going to make it.
Yeah.
Because, how many times when you're up the trail, you meet up with a group of people that are taking a break and one person in the group doesn't look good.
Yeah.
Like they need more water. They're all trying to like pour together their empty water bottles and feed
People
that
like
one
doing
person.
it hungover. I'm like, you are not ready, man.
Yeah, dude. It's
It's a workout,
It's
extreme.
way more than that. It is an effort. So if you're gonna do this trail, I'd wait for a managed access plan. Hopefully that does happen because it's way faster and way easier to do it from the Kaneohe
praying
side.
for that.
Because the Mauna Loa side is extremely dangerous, and we just know that from Daylenn's story.
Yeah, good luck to Friends of Haiku Stairs on their efforts. I hope that they're successful in
Me too.
getting that plan implemented, and I look forward to going up again in a legal way. The only reason I would want to go is to just
Yeah.
see if we can.
It'd be fun to do it from the actual stairs.
Yeah.
I think it would suck.
It would suck.
Like worse than Coco suck.
Probably, yeah. I hate
But it
Coco
would
Head.
be fun. Oh, dude, same.
But thank you guys so much for watching. We really appreciate you watching and listening to this story, and appreciate all of the research that we did trying to get this story right and explain to you more specifics about this hike as people that live on island. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching Lucy's Paradise Podcast. Aloha.